But I I loved art in school, and then I think I remember saying to my parents, "I wanna go to art school," and this is they say they never said this, but I think they said to me, "You cannot go to art school." So so I went to a school, um, that had a really strong art program, Alfred University, but I went for political science and environmental studies, both of those majors. And then, when I got out, I worked in the environmental field for a couple years, and then I was like, "You know what? This is like" I I moved to Paris for 2 years after that.
Wow.
Yeah, I'd always wanted to live internationally, and I decided to sign up for a 3-month French intensive, and so I did that, and then I did another 3 months, and I was like, "I'm not ready to go home yet." And so I found a roommate and lived there and did some different jobs. I translated for a nonprofit organization, but I was so bad I'm bad at English, so I was bad at translating, so that didn't work out. And I worked for a travel company, but I also made my own things and sold them on the steps of Trocadero, which is across from the Eiffel Tower. These like frames with bugle beads and that was a lot of fun and learned some great French from the other vendors and running from the police when they came. So
Yeah, I'm familiar with that area. We went to Paris for the first time. It was part of a trip to Germany as well, but, we went 2 years ago now, and it's such a magical place. It really is. Did that your time there influence your design aesthetic?
I don't think so. No, no. Um, no, it kind of like, I mean, our design aesthetic always evolves, but no, I don't think so. Yeah. Oh, I have to think about that more. But then, so after Paris, I came back and I worked I just tried to get a job like in was working for Laura Ashley at the time. And then my sister told me, she's like, "Oh no," and I worked for the Ritz-Carlton too for like 5 years. And then my sister said, "Suze, I went for this interview at Eileen Fisher, and it's not for me, but I just think you'd like this company." And, so I was like, "All right." So I contacted them, and it was just like such a natural fit because it was like I wasn't made for corporate, a corporate position and stuff, but Eileen Fisher, she had her own ways. So the company was really small, and I worked, um, in stores, and then I opened new stores for her, and then I, did wholesale too, and, it was interesting because there was I kept feeling also I was taking classes, art classes and jewelry classes, and I found love finally, like, I was always like, "What's my medium gonna be?" "What am I gonna work with?" I touched metal, and I was just like, "Oh my gosh." And then I watched one day I was having trouble when I was opening new stores designing this window, and Eileen came into the store. I'm like, "Eileen, I'm really having trouble with this." And she was just like, "Bump, bump, bump, bump," and it just sang. I'm like, "Oh my gosh." Like, that's, like, just being able to
Yeah.
do that, and just, like, I've always had that search for the pursuit of creativity, and also, I guess, like, who I really am, and so, like, I want that to come out in my jewelry. So, after that, I decided to go back to school. I didn't wanna go back to school for 4 years, so I went to FIT for a 2-year degree, and, as soon as I got out, I had kids, and so I still worked on the metal and jewelry, but I just didn't have the mind space as much. Um, and then as they got older, and also when we moved out of New York City and I had more space, um, I started making the jewelry and was making some lines. And then I applied to a craft show and I got in and, like, that was just the start, and then it went from there.